So we're about to hop on a Zoom with Steve and Brad from Opti-Fit and Gym Design Group. Same guys that I met in California, and they gave me a tour of all the different gyms or some of the gyms that they've designed. We're just going to get on a Zoom call with them and kind of pick their brain. They've been in this industry their entire lives, so I've got some topics that I sent them that I wanted to talk to them about, and we'll share with you guys on the Instagram. So yeah, I think it'll be really cool. Hopefully, you'll learn something from it. Well, Steve, I don't know what all you heard before we lost the audio there, but I'll just go through these like topics or whatever. First topic: how gyms and wellness clubs set themselves apart from others.
Kind of like fashion, if you will. You keep something long enough and it comes back in style. And that's kind of a bad analogy because I don't believe biomechanics and how equipment moves is the same as a look and feel. So with the good biomechanics, you do get that experience. But from Roy Simonson in the days of Cybex and building high quality equipment that lasted, from a quality to a biomechanics standpoint, we seem to deviate a bit because if you watched some of his speaking engagements on these topics, strength is the number one thing, and relating it to biohacking, to perfecting the body's functions internally, to the ultimate experience of making yourself look better. Those were paramount back in the day, and gym owners would go to great lengths to evaluate equipment. And deviating from that, we had a lot of cardio being sold because it needed to be replaced every 5 years and so on. So I think that process of hand picking your machines because you've tried them out, because you've researched them, because they do make a difference. I think that's what we've come into today. And a lot of the gyms that are out there don't check those boxes. And in your process, Preston, in working with Gym Design Group and your travels and your current experience of a very well appointed gym with your current space, you're getting into building out this whole experience from scratch.
Right. So it makes a big difference. Most gyms probably just are kind of looking to fill the space, whereas the ones that set themselves apart really do a deep dive research into, the actual biomechanical and what makes this equipment not only just expensive, but stand out amongst just your typical stuff that you would see in a commercial gym.
Exactly. I feel like it's like Steve said, it's more thought out with function, flow to really integrate each strength area, cardio area, Pilates area, all the different modalities that they all kind of have cohesion. A lot of guys come in and just kind of throw, hey, I just think, yeah, dumbbells against the wall and maybe a functional trainer in the corner, but really thinking out that function and flow of the space to really integrate each component. So it integrates really seamlessly with the members while still promoting, community and that social aspect of the club.
Right. Well, that kind of leads into the next one of, how having high quality equipment impacts the members themselves. I mean, is that something, having this stuff that is biomechanically made better, do you feel like that it helps people get to their goals faster, safer, and more efficiently?
I'd say absolutely. And if you look at kind of the whole industry and how it's changed from, the social media aspect to professional trainers having a voice and, how they're trying to differentiate themselves, it's really exemplified by this robotic, visual where they're pointing or nodding and showing you the way the body should travel and how you isolate a muscle. And then looking at equipment, it's not just what CrossFit brought us in this, free weight Olympic lifting, type of environment is, you've got squat racks and they can only accommodate so many people. And when you're trying to get a good workout, people are looking for variety. They're looking for a way to simulate deadlift in a plate loaded machine. They're looking at integrating, well appointed biomechanical, selectorized pin select options. And they're looking to do that with a group of like minded people, right? And so connecting all those things together is very important. And again, they're your main brands, not to knock on those, but your main brands that most people see are now scrambling to offer, what an Atlantis or a Panada or Prime and some of these brands offer. And I think that's a really top thing to look at.
So obviously, I mean, designing and working with a ton of different gyms and, fitness wellness spaces all over the US. And you've worked with a ton of different, budgets. You've worked with a ton of different brands. What would you say is your top three go-to brands in strength training equipment?
There's a handful that are out there that are building in a similar fashion. I believe in everything that I've seen, and we travel to FIBO, to Germany, to like you going across and looking at some of these great spaces. I believe Atlantis should take up the largest portion of your gym based on over 40 years of innovating biomechanically, quality driven mindset. But then, you enter into, I don't think any brand offers a turnkey thing, even though you could based on quality. But looking at I think Panada is deserves a real, space in a gym as well, and ultimately Prime. I think maybe those would probably be my top three at offering that. And then you enter in Gym 80, and I think Gym 80 is something to continue to look at. I don't think we've integrated any of those particular pieces to your concept yet. But again, being able to go with what you found today and then continuing to bring your members a piece or two from some of these companies, I think that's a real privilege for your gym goers. And so that's the kind of the concept I would look at.
Okay. Brad, what do you think that like in 2025, what do you feel like the fitness and wellness space is missing? And what do you think is the future of fitness and wellness?
I think the big component that almost every project that we work on is that wellness component. It's the fastest growing area outside of strength. Strength has definitely come back in full force, I think, with more knowledge, more voices, like Steve said, with different coaches and professionals. Strength has really hit it big. But outside of that, that is those wellness spaces, the contrast bathing, the the hydrotherapy, all that kind of stuff with steam, sauna, cold plunges, light therapies, um, nutrition, all of like kind of bringing that into a club and having that cohesion. I think is kind of the future and kind of what's starting to happen right now. A lot of club owners are looking to integrate those components. I think one of the big things you're doing that from start at Star Fitness, whereas a lot of club owners will bring that in kind of after the fact and it's kind of disjointed. There's no flow, there's no cohesion within the club. But that wellness, that whole kind of holistic feel to not only having strong foundations in strength training, but also adding wellness and other components like nutrition and mindfulness. And I think that's the future is looking forward is clubs that are adding all those different components. And then there's also the social aspect as well and building community. People are looking more and more for a kind of a third space. People are, the bar kind of isn't the thing anymore. It's really the gym and the club and these wellness spaces. And I think that's the future.
Yeah, I actually totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned the flow of the gym and how that would impact, a member's experience. Obviously with Gym Design Group, you all have designed a ton of gyms, 2D and 3D. I think a lot of people that come into the gym and they see all this equipment everywhere, they have no idea how much thought and strategic placing each piece of equipment has. Talk a little bit about how the design of a gym impacts the overall experience for members and the flow of the gym.
I think that's the most important part. I don't think brand or, some of those other factors enter in until you've designed a space that holds the integrity when it comes to putting together the budget. And, I think that's the first step. And, you look at this experience from my education and being degreed and having a passion for helping others is how do you break down barriers? We've seen that like with CrossFit. We've seen it even with some of these different group-based things, but what holds the longevity of making and getting results? And I think your space and the spaces that we've been able to influence has you can definitely see a difference. You can see a flow, and you can look at ADA compliancy, and that's something you have to have. But within that, you have ADA flow, right? And it doesn't it protects you. Do your members, do your training staffs and the ROIs that you need to have to run a good gym, do they allow for not having to say excuse me? Do they allow, someone who doesn't need, support in knowing how to work out? Does it give them the environment to work out properly, flow from the different areas, share the space, and share the excitement? And does it flow into recovery? I don't think you can have strength without wellness. And I think there's never been a bigger importance put on sleep, on the benefits and techniques of infusing, saunas to cold plunges to vibration therapy, to using some of these tools to heat shock proteins, to cold shock proteins, to what do those really mean? And to have that environment right there and a flow that allows someone to say, you know what, I work out 3 days a week, but my gym gives me an excuse or a need to go back and grab another 2 days. How do I incorporate Pilates? So I think a well-appointed gym, a well-designed gym, leads you without having to ask for advice. And through that space, you meet people that bring a new level through their experience, through their success, and through reaching out to the staff that you're going to put together.
And to add to what Steve's saying, it creates good design creates the experience, a high level experience for when they come in. Things aren't disjointed, and all of like what Steve said, it all has intention, and it helps create a better overall and elevated experience for the members and guests who are coming through the gym.
So other than like, having a great design, what would you say is another way to create an impactful environment, and or community within the gym?
I think when you have, these, hand-picked, well-appointed biomechanical pieces and you integrate that with a community, I mean, like mentioning CrossFit, they brought a community of fitness, wellness, how they move nutritionally, and mentally. And so I really think that creating that community aspect. I mean, if you see what a lot of gyms are doing now, and we lack real areas to develop organic relationships, and through a commonality and a passion for health and fitness, and connecting those different levels to share with each other, seeing someone have success with something they maybe haven't had experience with, and putting it all under one roof, and then inviting them in for educational experiences through maybe guest speakers in our industry, to just groups of people on a given night to be able to experience that. And within your walls, you've got that. You've got individual, flow. You've got turf and group based and functional based strength, assets to create programming with people, and share their progress with one another. Talk about it, you live it. So that's, I think, really important.
Yeah, I agree. You talked a little bit about, all the both of you have mentioned, the future and how a lot of these gyms are incorporating a ton of wellness stuff. Obviously, in, Star Fitness and Johnson City's design, we're incorporating cold plunges, saunas, and the use of contrast therapy. I've been testing that myself because I bought, the same brand that I'm going to be, putting into the gym, sauna and plunge, and seeing how it affects me and to learn more about it. What is truly this to explain to somebody that might have never used a sauna or a cold plunge, or what even is contrast therapy? What is the science behind those things, and how could it be beneficial to all different types of people?
For me, I would refer to Brad, who has really dove into putting together these kinds of spaces, and not that I haven't, and I'm living it. I've got, the sauna and the shower to wash those toxins off, and the cold plunge, and vibration and compression boots and all those things. But I think putting that together, I think Brad, if you could speak on that, that's really in your wheelhouse.
I mean, try to take it down to like just really basic understanding. Cold plunging, the whole science behind the cold plunging is to reduce inflammation. Plain and simple. That's why you see high level athletes, performance athletes, doing their cold plunging after high level activity. So reducing inflammation, improving that circulation, it helps definitely sharpen focus, and the nervous system overall. Strengthens, your vascular system. So all those like benefits. But then when you go to the hot, switching from hot to cold, you're really shocking that nervous system. Um, and the sauna is really high level for improving your cardiovascular system. There's been many, many studies that show that it's almost like not quite like an endurance exercise, but again, it's helping that cardiovascular system. And there's many studies showing over long term, like high level effects of getting in the sauna 3 to 4 days a week. And it definitely helps speed up recovery doing the hot to cold. So usually, the flow is kind of, do your sauna or any type of hot therapy for around 15 to 20 minutes, and then immediately going to cold from a minute to 5 minutes and really shocking the system, and then going back to hot, usually doing 3 or 4 rounds of that a couple days a week.
Yeah, I've actually noticed. I mean, I don't know what it had been like had I not used it, but I mean, I've been doing the contrast therapy for my shoulder. I mean, last time I saw you all, which was what, 2 weeks, or yeah, 2.5 weeks ago, something like that, I was in a
Yeah.
sling and on painkillers and muscle relax. I was pretty bad off. Couldn't even tie my shoes. And I mean, now um, I mean, I've started running again. Like I've been doing PT for 2 weeks. And I mean, that was like a full tear in my AC joint. And I just feel like that, I feel like that the hot and cold therapy had to have some impact because even the physical therapists are surprised about how much how fast I'm recovering, which definitely not complaining about that. But I have to at least name drop the sauna and cold plunge a little bit there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Um,
Preston, the key thing too, and the real difference in all this is sleep. And I've done and have been experimenting with sauna sessions at least 4 days a week in the evening in conjunction with the contrast in the mornings. And I also grade my sleep with, I use a Garmin. I found those, and a lot of our colleagues that we have worked with have tested out all the different ones, and there's a lot of them now. So it can get confusing, but the Garmin has been shown to be the most consistent at being able to grade the different parameters that contribute to good sleep, and sleep creates that healing process in the body. So that's a cool thing to integrate into your communities, is connecting the strength and the recovery, and how do you see those things other than what you feel. Cardiovascular health definitely is improved and has been shown to be improved with sauna sessions. So again, putting that all together, and that's the kind of environment you're building there. It's being able to put that together.
right. The old like style like Arnold, kind of pumping iron, the Gold's gyms. I feel like, back in the late 90s, that was like the pinnacle of gyms, like the Muscle Beach and stuff. How do you feel like that, the definition of fitness, whereas back then it might have been the definition of fitness when you thought about it was the big jack dudes and muscle and fitness. How do you think that, the word fitness has evolved over the last few decades?
Yeah, I think I think that, like I said earlier, that strength and that Arnold focus it's definitely seen a resurgence, but I think people more and more are focusing on longevity for overall health. And that's where all these like other wellness components, like Steve talked about sleep, nutrition, really giving a holistic experience. I think longevity. People obviously are still, they want to look good, they want to feel good, but also they want to feel good at their peak level mentally. And I think that's where all these different aspects, kind of really come together um, to kind of build that holistic, there's so many different, there's the community aspect, the social aspect, the wellness aspect, and it really goes to people being at their peak performance. I think that's why the biohacking industry has seen such a huge boost over the last couple of years because people really want to perform at their top level.
Right.
And I think that's the difference. I mean, I think all of us were, brought into this as young people at looking at Arnold and the different bodybuilding and the strength and aesthetics of these people that built their bodies. But I really think it's got into a science of people really they go to bed early. They're getting blood work done. They're connecting the different dots and you're seeing things like CrossFit. I mean, we had the strongman competitions that you used to see on ESPN and those guys weren't just strong. They were moving in a functional based, zones and heart cardiovascular, strength was involved through these things. And I think CrossFit brought that awareness. And you got a lot of people that are using these benefits of a proper strength program for biohacking, aging, and also performance. And so I think it's a very good time that we're moving right now, and it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that a lot of people, when, they think gym, they have a negative experience or a negative thought when they think gym because they think, boring four walls, oh God, I have to go to the gym. Like it's just part of the routine. And I think that, that is what we're trying to create and what you all have created with some of the gyms that you've been to is, that overall, like, it shouldn't feel like a chore to go to a gym. So, you know, what would you say to people that, they like to go to the gym, but, they don't like the space that they're in or they're looking to upgrade. How do you think that the importance of Black community would affect um, their ability to stay with, sticking to the gym, sticking to their goals, and the importance of, of course, if you're in a higher quality place, you might have to spend more money to be there. But do you think that the investment is worth it long term if it helps, helps you stick to your goals longer?
Yeah, I think a proper community elevates your education level by just by being associated in the right space. And you see a lot of programs, and do they really give you success? I mean, initially, any program neuromuscularly and adapting to those things is going to produce some form of what you think is an improvement. But real science behind the strength that's needed in our bodies from men to women comes with proper programming, and being a part of a community gives you that awareness to want to seek out understanding how to do things. So I think the right gym, the right environment connects the things that motivate you and gets you involved in a program that actually makes you feel and see the difference. And so you're going to adhere to that. You're going to want to go to that. Most people go to a gym to leave all their problems behind. And I think a good gym that gets you success with other people that have the same mindset is really what it's about. And in those environments, I mean, you're seeing that people are investing in, their trainers aren't just trained for some kind of program that's not just burning calories, but it involves time under tension. It involves, speed of the repetitions and understanding power and strength and all those things. So, I think that's what you're building is through your own trainers, through people that are coming there because they want a good environment, good equipment. I think is beneficial.
Obviously you all are professionals in this experience. you've designed and you consulted gyms from, from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, all around the United States. I'd like to ask each one of you, what makes you excited about Star Fitness 2.0 Johnson City compared to other projects that you've worked on?
I think that the best thing is your main goal is producing a gym from each piece, from each area of the gym, that it represents this holistic approach to, mentally and physically changing how people think about working out. And to be able to build that from the ground up and have the space flow. I mean, we made a lot of changes. I don't want to say a lot, but key changes in the initial, construction drawings that you had for the space, and to be able to connect that and be able to make those changes and make it flow, and your commitment to, going above and beyond the budget. And I think having a budget initially is very important, and I think you can still check the boxes at providing this type of gym at several levels. And fortunately, you had the ability to really find the best pieces and put it all together. From the brands that we've mentioned to not just the brands, but what they represent, the tools for your trade. So I really think that in the end, and then also having a mindset of how you're going to connect this community in the future. And you've got that we haven't shared yet, but getting this going will allow you to connect those dots as well. So a very good job there with your space.
Yeah, I kind of just echo what Steve said. I think your members and the community as a whole will experience, have an elevated experience as soon as they walk through the floor. I think between the three of us, we've kind of thought about every aspect, from people walking through the door, coming down through that hallway to entering the gym in each area, the strength areas, the dumbbell areas, the posterior chain areas. We've really kind of dove deep into the whole process and the flow of the entire space. So I'm really excited just for the overall experience. It's going to be, people are going to have a really elevated experience. And I don't know if there's really anything like it in the area. So I'm really excited for that because I think, just to echo again what we've kind of said previously, we've kind of thought of everything and every part of the gym in each area and how there's something for everybody. And there's science that kind of backs that up. And I'm excited to get it open and people get on the equipment and start training hard.
Yeah. You and
Yeah,
me
and I
both.
think Preston, the key to put this all together is really a good design is designed to be programmed. And I mean programmed by those that understand that we're all not the same. Some people have 6 kids, some people have 3 jobs, some people may not have, 6 or 7 days a week. I mean, we got to have a recovery, but they don't have as much time. But in proper programming, someone can benefit and improve strength and hormone balance and mobility, moving in multiple directions, and having a gym and the personnel to you know differentiate what a person needs. And for example, you've got a Pilates space, and if you studied the world's trends, I think it was last year that Pilates was number one. I think yoga came in two, and strength training was three, and those are all strength types of movement programs. And how do you incorporate maybe in the benefit of, let's say, 3 days of strength training and maybe a couple days of Pilates? How does that work together? And putting that under one roof and giving people the variety, and that can even change from 3 months to another periodization, if you will, and breaking it down for an individual. Maybe they have more time at one part of their life than others, but they can still continue success by a proper program, and you have the equipment and the space to make that happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I started us off on a rocky start, but I think we killed the topics for sure.
I'm just here to help you in everything that you're doing.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan to me. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks, Preston. Appreciate it.